Hello. Um, Mind the picture quality. I have no editing skills at all. And I'm recording this on a laptop that I use mostly for schoolwork. But I've been meaning to do this for a while. And as the title would indicate, and the episode I did on um, Anchor.fm, which is on Spotify, um, this is about my journey to atheism. And frankly, I'm kind of glad that I'm redoing it because when I did that episode originally, it was maybe a month or so after I became an atheist. But since then, I've actually been doing a lot more research, digging deeper. Um, Bart Ehrman is one of the people I've been researching because he has a PhD. He does do religious studies and looks at it more objectively rather than um, philosophically or religiously. Um, Christopher Hitchens, a little bit. I can only take so much. I watch a lot of Christian apologists, which I think is dumb. Why would you apologize for being a Christian? I don't know. But, so when I first came out as an atheist, I originally thought that this had been coming for a while, but I was thinking more in terms of like a few months, maybe a couple of years. So it is early February 2022 right now. I came out as an atheist approximately last August, give or take 6 months, because I don't know the exact day. Unlike a lot of what Christians like to emphasize, and my experiences with Christianity and Christians, I was raised Catholic. So a lot of emphasis is going to be on that. I have read the Quran, so I'm not entirely ignorant of Islam, but at the same time, I won't pretend to understand it. So I'm not really going to talk on that much. So just that disclaimer out of the way. But the more I've thought about it over the past 6-ish months, the more I realize that this has been coming for years. And when I mean years, I don't mean just like, 3 or 4. I mean almost a lifetime worth of years. I'm not afraid to say this. I'm 32. I turned 32 last November. And if I were to look at this objectively, I probably started down this path somewhere between ages 10 and 15. Literally over half my life. I was raised in a very, very, very Catholic household. My father, still to this day, is the most Catholic man I've ever met. That's the easiest way I can describe him. Yes, he does believe in evolution. He's not one of those dumbass young Earth creationists. And by dumbass young Earth creationists, I mean those who are very adamant about denying evolution and all that. If you're brought into it and you don't know, you don't really question it, you're young, you just don't really know any better, that's a different story. And there's a whole lot more nuance in there I really don't want to get into. But he's not one of those young Earth creationists who believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old. First time I ever heard about it was from him. And he was telling me, yeah, you get those people who are just, they take the Bible literally. I think I was maybe 12 or 13 at the time. This is the first time I'd ever heard of it. I'd heard televangelists. I'd heard of them, I should say. But it didn't really strike me in any way. I didn't really know anything about it. And he said to me, yeah, I think he was driving the vehicle. I don't remember which vehicle. I just remember he was driving. My sister and I were the passengers. My mom was at home doing whatever it was she was doing. And we were talking about the Bible just a little bit because my sister was reaching that age. And let's just say she became more inquisitive at an earlier age than I am. Not just because she's 2 years older, she just started exploring more earlier than I did. And they were talking about the Bible a little bit, and my dad's like, yeah, it's not like those people who believe the earth is 6,000 years old. And I never even thought about this. I never even questioned the age of the earth. I never questioned God or Jesus or anything geological or historical. I've always been a history nerd, so I always enjoyed looking into history. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you know how in the Bible there's this person begot this person begot this person? It's like, well, yeah, like I have, at that point I'd read a little bit of the Bible, but mostly it's just like Noah's flood and Garden of Eden story. I read a couple others, but none of them resonated. Like, I knew those two. And as far as I was concerned, Noah's Ark happened, but I didn't read into it. And my dad was like, you know how it mentions the ages of all those people? Well, at the time, I was kind of oblivious to it because I just really didn't care. And he's like, yeah, there are people who believe, like, the ages at the time that it says in the Bible, they really lived to that age. Like, if the Bible says Methuselah lived to 969 years old, Methuselah lived to 969 years old, and I was like, wait, what? Like, this was the first time I was legitimately just confused by something. I was like, I didn't even remember that his name was Methuselah until years later, having read that part of the Bible on my own. I was like, wait, they what? They believe the Bible, they believe Methuselah actually lived to 969 years old? That was the first, like, most ridiculous thing in the Bible I'd ever contemplated, just being completely ridiculous. I had never, like, I hadn't read the Bible. And my dad mentioned, he's like, yeah, there are people out there who actually believe that, and then people will actually count back the years on each of these people's ages, and they'll measure back to how far back Adam was, like that Adam, and that's when Earth started. And I was like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. Why would you believe that? I mean, unless you're just, like, at that time I didn't really think about it, but now it's like, unless you're just that ingrained in just denial, then why would you believe that? But at the time, again, I was only like, 10 or 12 years old, so yeah, I didn't really have critical thinking skills. The schools tried to teach us about it a little bit, but they went about it very poorly. Admittedly, I didn't really want to learn, but that's a story for another time. But it really was just a matter of, like, why do they believe this? He's like, no, they're fundamentalists. They believe the Bible is 100% fundamentally sound, that it is true. Even then, I knew it wasn't sound, but I didn't really know why. All I knew is that on Sundays, you go to church, it's what you do. Wednesday evenings, you go to religious education class, or RE class, as we called it. Or just RE, because everyone knew what it was. And, like, I viewed it more like going to school during the week. You just did it. You didn't really go because you were supposed to get something out of it. You didn't go because you actively wanted to go or you felt inspired by, like, the light of God. Oh, any of that crap. You just went. That's what you did. Catholic Church is a very structured, organized system. You got the first reading, that's out of the... First reading's out of the Old Testament. Second reading's out of the New Testament, and then the third is the Gospel reading. I've heard the story of the prodigal son fuck knows how many times. It didn't make sense to me as a kid. It doesn't make sense to me now. The kid's not sorry. He makes it very clear he's not sorry. And we're rewarding him for it. And then we reference it in real life. But yeah, it was eventually it was just on repeat. It was always like the same 3 stories. It wasn't a Bible verse, but it was always like the same 3 stories, basically lather, rinse, repeat, broken record. It really felt that way, and it never changed. Well, growing up, nuclear family of 4, mom, dad, sister, myself, and there wasn't anything new. There wasn't anything different. You just did it. As a kid, while I never questioned the whole God thing, they would try to push Jesus, but I didn't care. Like, they try to make you care. Something just didn't sink in somewhere. Because I viewed Christmas as that day where you get a present, or presents, and it was the only day of the year when we got gifts. So, my family was lower middle class. Much as my dad would like to think he's a little higher on the food chain, he probably is now, but back then, no, we were lower middle class, probably. And Christmas was the day you got presents. I didn't care about Jesus. Yeah, I saw the Charlie Brown special on TV as a kid. I didn't care. It was just ABC doing ABC things. Christmas movies were on. Best one was Die Hard. And I'm not saying that to be, like, different. I honestly like that one the best. I don't care what Bruce Willis says. It's a Christmas movie. I love it. And then Easter. Okay, so the only part of the year where I actively knew that I was doing Catholic things was Lent. Lent starts on Ash Wednesday and ends on Good Friday. Not Easter, Good Friday. That's 2 days before Easter. They didn't have 0 back then, so they counted as 3, but it's 2. But yeah. So it was always you'd give something up for Lent. That's a very, very, very Catholic thing. I don't do it anymore because why? But as a kid, you give up something for Lent. And I would just give up something stupid, and I'd always fail. But I just try to change it some way so that I can get around it. And my parents knew. Or at least I'm sure they did. If they didn't, they really were just oblivious. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She knew pretty much what was going on. She knows me better than I know me. I can talk to her about anything. But yeah, she knew that I was breaking Lent or whatever. And it was always something stupid, like giving up Pringles or like giving up Diet Coke or something. Like, I gave up Mountain Dew one year. I don't drink Mountain Dew. You don't judge me, go right the fuck on ahead. I don't care. I don't like Mountain Dew. I didn't then either. But yeah, we'd go to school, we'd go to like church every Sunday. My dad is so Catholic. He's a truck driver. He will go out of his way on Sundays across the country, and he will find any Catholic church he can to go to. And he thought it was cool. He still does. He thinks it's pretty cool to go to Catholic church and, in other churches. To me, it's like, I've already done this. I've seen this. I've been there. I've done that. Only difference is it's just a different place. It didn't really occur to me at the time, but it did kind of feel that way. And of course, whenever satellite radio came out, he was listening to Catholic radio, and he still does, I think. I'm pretty sure he does. But we moved to Missouri when I was 11. We didn't have RE. It was Sunday school. The generic Sunday school. I'd go to Sunday school, and I don't think I ever learned anything. Going to learn Catholicism, going to school, like church school, if you will, to learn Catholicism from age 5, maybe, all the way up until I was confirmed a Catholic at, I think, 17 years old. All those years. I passed the test required to be a confirmed Catholic. Like, they actually made us take a written test. And you had to get, I think, like an 80%, and there was like one thing on there I didn't know. And it was worth like 12 points. And I passed. I didn't learn anything. That'd be 12 years. I didn't learn anything about Catholicism. I've learned more about religion since becoming an atheist than I ever did when I was a Catholic. Even about the Catholic Church. So, this is when it really hit me, like, I didn't enjoy going to church or have any reason to. When I was 16, my parents started driving a truck together. Because, my mom, or like my parents needed extra money, and my dad finally talked my mom into trucking with my dad. And they're like, all right, Adam, you got a job. I was working at McDonald's at the time. And you can fend for yourself. You can, we're gonna trust you to be able to take care of yourself whilst we go drive across the country doing trucker things. Like, all right, sweet. Everyone thinks that when that happens, party, woo! Like every weekend, it's not like that. Okay, I grew up my high school was a bunch of quitters. They would always talk about going and doing things, doing fun things all the time, and then they never did. Yeah, I was a lonely teenager. I had one friend that lived like a mile and a half away. That was it. and it wasn't because people didn't like me. I grew up with a bunch of lazy bastards. But getting back on topic, I remember I had a pickup. Church was 12-ish miles away. So if I wanted to go to church, all I had to do was drive. Sunday morning, 9 a.m., take off 20 minutes early, and I'd be there in time. I think it was 8 o'clock. I mentioned church started at 9. It was like 8 o'clock one Sunday morning, and I was just tired. Like, I was asleep. And my dad calls me and says, "Hey, son." Hey, Dad. This is a flip phone at the time, so I was like, "Hey, Dad. So, you gonna go to church today?" "No." "Well, you should go to church today." "I don't wanna." "No, you should go to church today." He doesn't stutter like I do when doing this. "Dad, did you just call me to tell me to go to church?" Yeah. Hung up on him. Put the phone back in the headboard, and I just went back to sleep. He didn't call me back. I was legitimately so irritated that he called me to tell me to go to church I just hung up on him and just went back to bed. I don't even remember what I did the rest of the day. I only remember that experience, and I did not go out of my way to go to church. Because this was after I'd been confirmed, so I didn't have to do anything extra. It was just, you know, I don't want to go to church. I don't see the point. It's the same It's the same broken record every fucking morning. I don't want to fucking do this. I learned more about Catholicism at that time from watching the movie Dogma. Great movie, by the way. But yeah, I learned more from Dogma than I did from church about Catholicism. About all of it. The night I was confirmed, when I was 17, my Uncle Carl showed up because, my dad and my Uncle Carl are brothers and they're both super Catholic. I don't think my Uncle Carl's as Catholic, but for all intents and purposes, he's Catholic too. And I was like the movie Dogma came up, and my mom was like, "Oh yeah, Dan didn't like Dogma. He didn't like that at all." And my Uncle Carl was like, "Oh no, he did not like that movie." I was like, "I like that movie." He's like, "Adam, you are a confirmed Catholic. You are not allowed to like that movie." I was like, "Why?" It's like, "Because that's bad-mouthing Catholicism." I was like, okay. Like, I just thought it was a funny movie because I watched it when I was like, I don't know, 12 maybe. So I didn't really get it. But it was years later when I watched it again, it was like, holy shit, this really is bashing the church. This really is bashing Christianity in general. And Kevin Smith actually did his research on it. And it was after that, watching that movie again, I was like, maybe this movie has some merit to it. I didn't take it too seriously at the time. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Life experiences happened. I don't want to get too in-depth into that because it's not really related. I had an apartment. This was when I was 19 or 20. I had an apartment, lived maybe a couple miles away from Catholic church in like the urban city nearby where I lived at the time. Or like I lived in that city. And I'd go to church like every other Sunday. Basically, it was to see if maybe I'd get something different from like a different church, because we'd only really gone to like 2 or 3 my whole life, and going to different churches growing up in the truck really didn't do much for me because I just didn't really take any of it to memory. Even today, I've got like 1 or 2 memories total. I got 2 I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, I'd go every now and then, and like when I was 18, I joined the Knights of Columbus. It was actually today I officially said I don't want to be a knight anymore. I hadn't talked to them about being an atheist, and I still haven't told them that, but they didn't ask me why. I didn't want to be a Knight of Columbus anymore, so hopefully I'll never have to. But yeah, like I joined their council. I was technically am still a 4th degree member of one of the Knights of Columbus councils. I've been to one of their meetings once, I think. And really it was just about trying to be part of some kind of organization. But I was easily the youngest person there. There's like one other guy there my age, and we really didn't know each other. I don't even remember. There might have been one other person there my age. I don't remember. I just remember a bunch of old guys. I don't know any of them. I cannot tell you any of their names. I got some vague recollections of like facial images in my mind. I don't remember anything else. But yeah, at that point, it really was just like, why do I even go to church at all? So I kind of just stopped going to church. This was when I was like 19 or 20. And over the course of this time, I realized I was more of a deist because I did actually start looking into like what I was supposed to believe as a Catholic. I want to roll back a little bit here. When I was in high school, my parents took a religious quiz on beliefnet.com. I don't know the reliability of it, and honestly, I don't really have a reason to. My parents took it. I think, I guess my dad probably got like 100% Catholic. I don't know what my mom got. My grandma got like a 90% Catholic because, she was a Catholic her whole life. And my sister took it. I wasn't in the room. I wasn't in the room for any of this. My sister took it, and I think my dad said she got like a 67. And I took it, and I got like a 64. And my dad just lost his fucking shit. Because it's like, oh no, my children aren't like super Catholic. Ah! Like, I don't understand the big deal. Well, scroll back to where I was when I was in my early mid 20s, or early 20s. This is a very important detail. It was my early 20s. And it really was just like, why do I bother going to church? I only have the Knights of Columbus for the life insurance, and like when I changed bank accounts, that got canceled because I wasn't able to make payments anymore. It did not affect my credit, just FYI. And all in all, it really didn't make a difference. Because when I was going, like, I talked to my sister a little bit, and she's like, I'm not really a Christian at all. Like, Jesus was a cool dude, apparently, but a lot of people doing pretty similar things back then. Maybe he wasn't even real. It's like, I never really thought about it, but, at no point in my life can I ever honestly say that I've worshipped Jesus. I never understood the idea of worshiping a man, which is still true today. I never understood why people were always on and on and on about this whole Jesus thing when the first commandment, like, explicitly says, like, don't worship idols. When that is explicitly what the crucifix is. It is an idol. Like, the rosary beads aren't, but the cross is. But, yeah, I was like, I don't know really what I am. And that's really what got me thinking about it. Because I was like 19 or 20, maybe 21. That was the first time I really actually thought about it. Like, I don't really know. Like, I've never really bought into Jesus. My whole life, I never bought into it. Like, I don't get it. Because at that time, like, I was still under the impression of, like, I've always believed in God. I've never believed in Jesus. Because I was always... Because, like, the most convincing argument for religion is personal belief. Or personal experience. I don't care what anyone tells you. You can use the Kalam argument, Pascal's wager. Ugh. The most convincing one will always be personal experience. And I felt like there were experiences where, like, I should have been dead and, like, God intervened in some way. But at the same time, I really didn't believe in divine intervention, mostly because I just didn't want to. It was a contradiction, and I didn't really see it that way at the time. I do now. I learned my fucking lesson. But, I didn't really think of it at all. I didn't think about it at all. I didn't even think about religion at all. Because, I'd stop going to church. I'd stop even really worrying about it. Because it really just didn't matter to me at all. Well, I'm in the Army now. For about 2 weeks, I had quit my previous job, so that I could basically spend a little bit of time with my sister, spend a little bit of time with my parents, maybe one of my grandmas, and then, or both my grandmas, and then ship out for basic. Not a big deal. Well, my cousin Laura showed up whenever I went to go visit my sister down in Galveston, Texas. I was living in Missouri at the time. Fuck Missouri, by the way. Yeah, I'll leave that in. But yeah, we were talking about religion in the car, more just in passing than anything else. Like, I wasn't driving. But, they were talking about all this, and I was like, the more I think about it, the more I realize I'm just a deist. I don't even remember where I got the term, but, like, I really do think I'm more of a deist than anything else. And my sister, my brother-in-law, and my cousin Laura were like, what's a deist, Adam? It's like, basically, you believe a God is necessary to create the universe, and then hands off after that. And they're like, that actually makes sense. Which, for the record, that was the founding fathers' belief. Like, the majority of them. Thomas Jefferson very famously was a deist. And that was because at that time, we had very little understanding of the universe. They believed it more like in the heliocentric model, because as far as astronomy was concerned, we had the Copernican model, we had the Galilean model, and that was about it. So there really wasn't much more beyond that. So there were atheists, there were Christians, but for the most part, they were really deists more than anything else, if they believed in a God. And Thomas Jefferson openly admitted that. And I was like, at the time, I hadn't studied the Big Bang. Cosmology, that being the study of the cosmos, outer space, all that good shit. As interesting as I find it, it is far beyond me. I will not pretend to understand it, especially at that time. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, a God was necessary to say bang and create it. I know better now. But at that time, that's how I saw it. I kind of thought of it more like a Pascal's wager thing, because one of the things growing up that scared me was the devil. Hell. Going to hell. And especially living in Oklahoma as a little kid, then growing up in Missouri, as much as they don't want to tell you this, fire and brimstone really is the one thing that will ensure that you don't leave. Make no fucking mistake. All Christians do it, not just Protestants. Like, we were always taught Baptists were bad because they did it. Catholics did it too. They still do. Because if they don't have that negative punishment, they don't know how else to keep you in the church. And besides, Catholics invented fire insurance after the Divine Comedy. But I didn't know that till later. And that will come up later in the story. But I really just... that was basically just where I was at that time. I shipped off for basic, and I went to church every Sunday. I tried praying before going to bed every night. I didn't hear anything. I'd pray every night as a little kid. I didn't hear anything. I didn't feel anything. Honestly, like, I'd have my hands like this on the bed like I was supposed to, like I'd seen in the books and in all the different doodads. I'd look up and I'd see a ceiling. I'd look down and I'd see the bed. Close my eyes, I'd see the back of my eyelids. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything for anything. I didn't understand what I was praying to because nothing was responding. And in basic training, I kind of got the reputation as like, that guy that's praying. I go to church on Sundays. Though, to my closer friends, I would admit, it wasn't about going to church. It was about being in basic training and being able to get out of the out of the bay for an hour or two on a Sunday morning. It was entirely about getting a break from basic. That's all it was. And if you were doing things for religious reasons, as long as you weren't like breaking the law or something, they would be willing to make concessions. As long as it was not affecting your performance as a soldier, the Army will make concessions. And I do respect the Army for that. I know it's a legal thing, but at the same time, they also know it's a very efficient way to keep soldiers in check, more or less. So yeah, for like 8 weeks straight, I'd do that. When I went to AIT, which is basically just the next level of training, I didn't go to church once. Because I didn't have to. I didn't need an excuse to not be hounded by drill sergeants. On the weekends, it was formation 2100 on the troop walk. Saturday night, Sunday night, that's it. That is all that mattered. It's like, sweet. I got far better things to do with my time on a Sunday morning than go to fucking church. So, yeah, that was the back half of 2014 and a little bit in 2015. Then, first duty station was in Germany. And because Dad took me to all those churches and different places growing up, I wanted to see what it was like going to church in Germany. One night, I went to church to like a Saturday evening mass in Germany, and I suppose I did feel a little awkward being the only English speaker there, but mass was in German. I kind of knew what was going on from like my experiences growing up, but it was a complete waste of time. I had no reason to be there. It's a complete waste of fucking time. I was in church for an hour just listening to people talk. I had no idea what they were saying. For obvious reasons. I barely speak American, and that's my native tongue. And I was very confused. When I got back to base the next day, it's like, what the hell was that about? That was a complete waste of my time. I went to church one other time in the 2 years I was in Europe. It wasn't in Germany. It was at the Holy See. Basically, that was the pinnacle. Basically, this is alright, if the Vatican doesn't convince me that Catholicism is right, or that I'm going to feel something emotionally, religiously, spiritually, if the Catholic Church can't do it at the fucking Vatican, nothing else will. I went to the Vatican and went to midnight mass on Christmas. It was one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen. I literally watched the Pope pick up the plastic baby Jesus out of the manger, walk around St. Peter's Basilica, and put it back. That's the one thing I remember, apart from the fact that he's speaking Latin. It's a complete waste of my fucking time. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't regret going to Rome. That was awesome. It was like one day too many, but at the same time, Rome was awesome. The Vatican didn't need a passport to get in and out of there because there are no borders. There's no wall. St. Peter's Square. Like, it's a nice place. It looks really pretty. But honestly, it reminds me more of a museum, or a mausoleum, if you will, than it does a church. Walked in Christmas Day so I'd actually be able to see everything around. And yes, it's open on Christmas Day because it's the fucking church. I saw the Pieta on one side. If you don't know, that's Michelangelo's statue of Mary holding Jesus post-mortem. And it is a really cool statue. And then you look around, you see the ceiling, that Michelangelo painted, and you look around, and it's like, I'm seeing a lot of Pope shit here. God comes second. That was how I felt then, and how I feel now. In Vatican City, in St. Peter's Basilica, God comes second to the Pope. I get that there are a shitload of corrupt popes, but at the same time, you'd think that they would have gotten something like that worked out by now. There's the altar, of course. But, yeah, it didn't feel church at all. It just felt like a museum to the Pope. That is what it felt like. I didn't try to, go downstairs or something, into, the catacombs or whatnot. But, yeah, I went in there, I went surface level, and, I went in, I toured the whole fucking thing. And it's free, you don't have to pay for it. But there was absolutely no incentive to become a Catholic from it. And this was Christmas 2015, and at that point, I knew I was never going to be, a Catholic. I was never going to be, I was never going to feel like this is the religion, this is the way. And no, I didn't just steal that from Mandalorian. I didn't realize that until after I said it. But it was an absolute waste of fucking time. After my time in Germany, through a long, complicated sequence of events, I ended up going to Monterey, California for about 9 months. The Army sent me out there. I don't want to get too specific. I did go to church every Sunday, but it had absolutely nothing to do with church. Is because a buddy of mine was like, hey, you play bass guitar, right? I was like, yeah, not well, but, I do. He was like, all right, well, the church band needs a bass guitarist. You want to play? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I play bass guitar on Sundays, and that really was the only reason I went. It had absolutely nothing to do with Catholicism. It was entirely just because I want to play the bass with somebody. I just want to be in a band. And it was fun. I didn't really care, so to speak, about, the church service or anything like that, but I did learn about music. Throw out the crappy church lyrics, and it actually wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but, it was okay. It was a good learning structure, if you will. Because church music is structured, and it wasn't just the bullshit Gregorian chant that the church likes to push on everyone. But after that, been to church 2 times since then. Because I PCS'd from California to Maryland. And I've been to church 2 times since then. Both were for Christmas. One was 2017. The other one was 2018. 2017, Christmas 2017, I went with my sister and her husband, because they were still trying to do the whole church thing at the time. They don't now, but that's their story, and I don't want to get too in-depth into that, or at least not yet. And it was kind of, she's like, I don't know if you're going to like our hippie church. I was like, Heidi, I don't want to go to a Catholic church, and I don't want mom and dad to try to weasel me into it. Like, okay. So I went to their church, and It's just another Protestant church. I've been to a few of those, and it's just another church. Didn't really care. And honestly, I think Heidi and Richard were looking more for the hour of someone watching the kids because they got two kids. They still have just the two. Um, and honestly, I think they just wanted the free daycare on Sundays, and I don't blame them. But just an hour, and yeah, they did that. Didn't really feel anything. It was more one of those just like, okay, I'm here. Cool. Year later, Christmas 2018. I have not been to church since then, and I have no reason to go back. Went to a Christmas Eve evening mass rather than midnight mass with my parents. I don't know that I've seen my father as giddy ever since, because he was just so happy I was in church. He was just so happy to be there. And I was just annoyed. Because, I remember part of the homily, there were other things, but, I remember, the priest was going on and on and on saying his spiel, and during part of it, it was like, in Jesus Christ's name, we pray, amen. And I was like, wait a minute. You really do buy into this whole Jesus thing. It never really occurred to me until right then. I was 29, and it had never occurred to me until right then just how ingrained the whole Jesus thing had really gotten. I didn't buy it at all, and I never had, and I just completely separated myself from that whole angle of church at that point, and I just didn't really get it. But at this point, I was still a deist, because I did believe in a God, more in the sense of George Washington's version of the creator, if you will. I mean, I know he used other terms, but the creator's the one I made up. But it was more of a Brahma scenario. I suppose that'd be a better way to put it. I think it's Brahma. Brahma in Hindu mythology is the creator, Vishnu is the preserver. I know Shiva's the destroyer. I might be getting Brahma and Vishnu crossed, but I think Brahma is the creator god, and that's the one that I really thought of, even though I didn't think of it as Hindu. But that was the only reason why I had any faith in anything, and it wasn't so much faith, so much as just I felt like it was more just a knowing there's a God more than an actual belief in a God. And yeah, I didn't even think about it for years. Actually, going, because 3 years in Maryland, never went to church once. Year here in Virginia, never went to church. While I was in Maryland, never even thought about it. Never even considered it. No one invited me. No one told me I needed to go. I did not seek out a church. I didn't care. When I got to Virginia, so things changed a little bit. I don't have it with me right now. And the certificate is literally hiding underneath the laptop. So about 2 months after I moved to Virginia, I watched a YouTube video. Yeah, I know, reliable source. But it was YouTuber Thoughty2. I think his name is Aaron Lomas. He's just some English dude, from Leicester, I think. He did a full episode on the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, and I was sold. Because it was as close to anything I actually believed. It was closer to anything than anything I'd actually believed. I quasi-looked for a church that matched my beliefs, but there just wasn't one. I mean, there is no International Church of Deism. At least not that I'm aware. But yeah, he sold me on the whole Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, and I always been kind of interested in becoming a minister of some kind. It's like $50, they'll give you a certificate, and you can marry people in most states. And baptize if you so desire. What you're baptizing them into, I have no idea. But that's their thing. But yeah, it's a little over a year ago now. And I spent the $50. They gave me the Flying Spaghetti Monster little wallet card. My wallet's over there, and I'm not going to pause the video to go get it. And the certificate is underneath the laptop, so I can't show you. But that was as close to anything religious I had gotten in quite a while. And it's about 6 months later, this past August-ish, because of scenarios, unfortunate, I was watching another YouTube video. I really suggest this YouTuber knowing better, because he gives you insight into certain things that most people don't really think about here in America. He did an episode on the Divine Comedy. And that was whenever I realized that, I'd done a little bit of research on hell and the devil and whatnot, just because I was kind of bored. But it was from his video on basically the evolution of hell, if you will, and our concept of it. That was whenever I realized that Jews never believed in hell. I'd thought about, I'd heard that, but I didn't really know anything about it. The church really didn't believe in hell until after the Divine Comedy, and then they made a canon. An Italian poet literally just fictionally wrote what is perceived as hell today. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. The only thing I was really afraid of growing up was a fantasy. I'm afraid of snakes now, but that has nothing to do with Garden of Eden. Snakes are scary motherfuckers. But it really was just the only thing I was, actively afraid of. I literally have no incentive to fear anything. And I really started thinking about my religious beliefs again. Am I really a deist? Do I actually... Am I really a deist, or am I an agnostic deist? Not really sure if there's a God. And I was walking around the mall. There was a mall right across the street. It was 3 floors, so I had plenty of walking time, walking and thinking. And it really just hit me. It was this is gonna sound a little weird, but it was like finding out that there's no Santa Claus. So this is a little bit of a tangent, but it does play into this. I found out that when I was 8 years old, a friend of mine at school told me there is no tooth fairy. And I was very adamant, yes there is, yes there is. And everyone around me is like, Adam, there's no tooth fairy. And the kid that was trying to convince me of this initially, his older brother is like, the tooth fairy, really? Because he was looking at my sister, goes, the tooth fairy, really? He believes in the tooth fairy? It's okay to believe in Santa, but the tooth fairy? And that's when it hit me. Oh my god, there's no Santa Claus. Again, I was 8, but it's all these different things, they don't exist. Well, this in particular walk around the mall, there wasn't some older brother of somebody who just happened to say it. I was literally just thinking about it because I've been watching different apologists. I've been watching different YouTubers. I've been watching atheists. I've been watching theists. I've been watching different philosophers going all the way through. They were talking about the historicity of the Bible. They were doing all these different things, and it's So the only thing that really had me convinced that there was a God for all those years was that a God was necessary to create the universe. The one that got me wasn't a religious person, or wasn't doing it for religious reasons. This was a cosmologist breaking down the black hole episode of Stargate. Stargate SG-1's my all-time favorite show, by the way. And she's breaking this down. And I can't remember what brought it up, but in this episode she goes, all right, people need to get out of their heads that the Big Bang is a creation story. It's not. And she did go deep in, she did do a deep dive into this because she's a cosmologist. She knows this shit. And it really was like, wait a minute. There's no reason why there would be a God to create the universe. It's not necessary. I've never really bought into the whole divine intervention thing. I'm not afraid of hell, so I'm not afraid of Pascal's wager. How can there be a God? Like, how could it even be possible? Like, I never really believed that a God would have emotions in the first place, so how can there be a God? Like, I never believed in Jesus. I believe he was a real person, but I was never convinced by who he said he was, or who everyone else said he was. But I just didn't buy it. And this was the point at which it's like, why do I believe in a God? I just don't see how there can be one. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll fucking deal with the consequences. But how can there be a God? I just don't see it. The laws of physics don't require one. They work on their own. I don't get the whole fine-tuning argument. Like, I've seen Douglas Adams' clip, and that was pretty funny. But, yeah, and then the only real two arguments left are the Kalam argument, that being God was necessary to create the universe, and in realizing this, it's like, God wasn't necessary. The universe is infinite. Or at very least, our instruments are only capable of going back so far cosmologically. We can't really prove or disprove anything before or after. Before the Big Bang or after. After, basically heat death, which is what cosmologists call basically the end of time. But the universe, molecules will still exist. At very least, matter, I won't call it, for lack of a better word, matter. Like, energy itself will still exist. So the universe itself is infinite in a way. It's not like everything just disappears. It's like, then the Kalam argument just completely implodes on itself. I never bought into William Lane Craig's whole thing. I think he's crazy. And then the only other argument left, the one I mentioned is like the most powerful, and that's personal experience. It's like, well, I never had a personal experience. I never had anything, like, I never saw Jesus. I never saw God. I never had an experience that said, this is convincing. This proves God. I never had an experience like that, and I never will. And it really was just like, that was the moment when I realized that there just is no God. At first, it was a little heartbreaking, because it's like, I've been raised my whole life to believe that there is a God. But it was also freeing. Because, I was raised Catholic, you're raised with that Catholic guilt. Like, you're guilty of something. You don't know what, but you're guilty. which I always thought was dumb, and I kind of grew out of that as I got older, but it was freeing in that no organization religiously affiliated have then or currently has any authority over me. There's nothing they can do about it. They can't take my money. I live in a secular United States, contrast to what the Christian persecution complex will have you believe. I have no affiliation whatsoever. I literally cut myself off from the Knights today. For years, they'd been waiving my annual fee to be a member of whatever council because I'm active duty. So I hadn't been paying into that since I was like, I don't know, 20. So I didn't have to fuck with it. It didn't matter to me at all. So it really was just a freeing experience. I have no ties to religion at all, and there's nothing any religious organization can hold over me. It was after that that I actually started really digging even deeper into the atheist side of things. If I could go to the Faithless Forum next year, I would absolutely love to go to the Faithless Forum. But also, I don't know if that's a thing, or I don't know if that's even going to be possible, or what would even be required. But yeah, it really is just what is the incentive here? And yeah, since then, alright, so at first, it was kind of one of those, I kind of want to keep it to myself, but, I had a couple of coworkers that are mostly agnostic, and, I've talked to them about it a little bit. One of them I hang out with, mostly on Sundays. And then I made a mental plan to tell my sister, her husband, and my mom over the holidays. Because I actually was planning on going back to Missouri for the holidays. I only go once every 2 to 3 years. I was going to go the year before, but then 2020, ye old virus happened, so that didn't happen. So I'll push it back to 2021. And I was staying with my sister this time rather than with my parents. And, it was pretty generic. It was, I was just sitting at the breakfast table with them. We were talking religion. My sister's got a little bit out there beliefs, but she doesn't really believe in an all-encompassing, God, so to speak. At least not the Christian version of the God. But yeah, I was I mentioned I've recently come out as atheist. At first I thought I was going to say gay. I'm not. But hey, those of you out there gay, be gay. Be who you are. I don't care where you are on that. That's all I'm going to say on that. Just, you do you, and be happy doing it. Consensually. But, yeah, it was just, they're like, okay, well, okay, that was a little out of nowhere, but, just so you know, we still love you. We're not, we're not going to hold it over you, but, if you want to talk about it, yeah, go ahead. And it really was just like Drew from Genetically Modified Skeptic when he was talking to Sean McDowell, where he's like, shower them with love. Say, my love for you is unconditional, and show that. Listen to them. That's the best thing you can do. And that's what my sister did. She didn't watch that video. That was just her reaction. Just, my sister and her husband, it was just, I love you. Still love you. I'm not going to disown you for it. We don't think you're wrong. And I wanted to have a mom Sunday so that I could talk to my mom one-on-one. The whole atheism thing, that was more like a side venture. Like, I kind of just want to spend a day with my mom. Not because she birthed me, but because, I love my mom and we can talk about anything. I just want to have a day with my mom. But yeah, like, it was actually the night of Columbus. My mom was like, Adam, do you actually want to have anything to do with the Knights? Because they're sending us your card, or your membership card. I didn't send it. Do you want us to send you that? And my response to my mom was, I mentioned my mom, like, I don't want to have anything to do with them, okay? I just don't. Like, well, why not? My mom is one of those that'll ask why. And I was like, all right, don't repeat this to Dad. I'm an atheist. She's like, my mom definitely had a different response. Her response was, I just come to that conclusion. Like, it wasn't necessarily as hostile as it might sound, but it was more just confused. Like, wait, what? And, and I told her, not in as many words as I've been talking here, but, it really was just like, I've been studying the history of the Bible. I don't believe in Jesus. I've been looking at all the different arguments, and I'm just not convinced by God. So I'm an atheist. And she's like, okay, I can accept that. She didn't try to convert me. She didn't try to, she didn't show me any anger or hostility or anything. It was just, okay, talk to you about it a little bit. I don't necessarily know how much she really wanted to, but yeah, like, I talked to her about it a little bit, and it really was just as simple as, I just don't really want to do this whole believing thing anymore, because I just don't. And yeah, I just don't. I just don't buy it. And she was telling me about a few of her experiences. I didn't try to change her mind, so to speak, because my mom's a grown-ass woman. She doesn't need her son to tell her what's right and wrong. And she can handle her own damn self. My father, on the other hand, I did mention, to start off, don't repeat that to my dad. Because I honestly think it'll break his tiny tin heart if he ever found out that I'm an atheist. I'm perfectly fine with him going into the ground 30 years from now and never knowing. It will not break my heart. I would be perfectly fine with it. I'd be perfectly fine if the only time I go into any church at all for the rest of my life is for funerals. My sister and my brother-in-law, they want to be cremated and their ashes mixed together, scattered out over the sea so that they can be together forever. Like, their bodies will be together forever. I think that's beautiful. Go to a church for my mom's funeral, my dad's funeral, and depending on how long before other family members die, because I've got a rather old family, but they also have longevity. Looking at my family history, I don't know if I'll still be in the Army or not, and most family deaths you're really not going to get time off for. Grandma's debatable, and I've only got one of those living. But yeah, that was about a month and a half ago. And, I told a few friends. First friend I told was my Navy buddy, Jose. It was not even a week later I told him. And he was already an atheist, and, we'd talked about it, and it really was how I was, doing all this. Yeah, I threw that out. I'm an atheist. He's like, welcome to the club, buddy. He didn't say it like that, but that was... That's kind of the feel. But yeah, like that's basically where it stands right now. That's my path to atheism, if you will. And honestly, I feel so much better. Like I feel free. I don't feel like I have to follow a bunch of arbitrary rules that just don't really stand to reason. I don't I don't miss it. I still research it, and I've learned far more about it, like religion in general, being an atheist, because it's just interesting. I have no intention of going back. Like, if I found out that there was a God and that by not believing in it, that I'm going to hell, like, say the young earth creationists are right, Kent Hovind is right. Ugh. Say he's right. I stand by this. I would rather be roasting in hell with Tony Iommi, lead guitarist for Black Sabbath, than rotting in heaven with his fucked up ass. So, yeah, that's kind of a egregious way to end, but I'm gonna leave it there. Um, you want to throw some hate my way? By all means, do it. You want to say something better? By all means, throw it my way. But if you want to know more, or you know anything about video editing, because I don't, as you can tell, that's a wall. That's not set up. That's a wall. Um, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. So, cheers.